guys. I know I look crusted and busted right now, but it's okay. This is actually the day after I filmed this video, but I totally forgot that I needed to do like a little intro. So yeah, today's video is all about why I have depression. You know, the whole story behind that. So stay tuned and let's get into it. Excuse the hippie Jesus look here. I wanted to make sure I included footage of what I considered the highlight of my day, pampering. And no way better to do it for me than taking a bath with a bath bomb. Alright, now let's get into it. Having major depressive disorder, aka MDD, makes me experience periods of deep sadness. For me, it starts with anxiety that eventually leads into a depression. It's like a chain reaction. So when my body starts becoming unhealthy, I get a little hypoglycemic. It can get as bad as pre-anemic if my iron levels are low. And then there's the stress-induced pains like chest pain and headaches and things of the sort. So this is what triggers my anxiety. And if I let it go untreated, it starts affecting my mood. And that's when the depression starts kicking in. That's when the negative thoughts sneak into my head. And they can be thoughts like, you're saying you're being a poop head. Like, why are you so sad? You have everything you could ever want in life. Or, why can't I just be normal? Maybe I'm not as strong as I think I am. Both times that I got into a deep depression, this is exactly how it went down. The first time I fell into depression, it was a summer before my sophomore year of high school started. Scratch that, it was junior year. And I had just learned at church that whenever there was a thunderstorm, that meant God was angry. And we had quite a few of those storms for some reason that summer. Obviously, as a mature adult, I no longer think this way, but as a 16-year-old, I was pretty traumatized. The sound of thunder itself felt like God was scolding me, like in a loud, booming voice. And the lightning felt like he was trying to strike me as a form of punishment. And I thought I thought it was personal. Like whenever there was a storm, that meant that I was being sinful. And it's so silly to think about this. It's so dumb. Like, who thinks this way? I did not have access to the internet. I had I had a Britannica, I think that's what it's called, Britannica encyclopedia that my dad had installed in my big old dinosaur computer. And I looked for the name for this specific fear, and it turns out it's called astrophobia, the fear of thunder and lightning. And I became obsessed with checking the Weather Channel every single day. I was always watching out for weather reports on the radio station. I think it was like 96, KIXI 96.5, yeah. And I was always looking out the window from my bedroom, like literally every 5 minutes, to check to see if there was like any gray clouds in the sky. But even on the sunny days where the skies were clear, I started to imagine that there were dark clouds that would eventually turn into storm clouds. And I think that was the moment, without even realizing it, that was the moment I developed clinical depression, aka MDD. Lucky for me, the storms did go away, and the rest of the summer was honestly like perfect weather conditions. But I was still scared. I still wouldn't leave the room. I was deathly scared of getting struck by lightning. And I couldn't stop thinking that somehow overnight a storm would sneak up on us. Even after the school year started, months later, I had to deal with the aftermath. I didn't feel like I could live a normal life again, and I felt very lonely in my own suffering. So I grew pretty distant and quiet, and my parents eventually noticed. So my dad had to sit me down and he asked me what was going on, what was wrong. It was really difficult for me to open up to him because I was aware that this was kind of a ridiculous fear, but eventually I felt comfortable enough to tell him the truth. And he told me that whatever it was I learned at church, to just take it as a metaphor. That calmed me down a little bit, to be honest. The next several years, we didn't get any tea storms, and this was plenty of time for me to recover. The second time I fell into depression, it wasn't as bad as the first time, honestly, and it was shortly after my diagnosis. I felt like it wasn't as bad as the first one because I was so busy having panic disorder, but I still felt pretty darn sad about it. Like, losing the weight and feeling like I was physically deteriorating was really, really sad. And it did cause issues with my relationship with the person I was dating at the time, and even with friends and family. It started to affect them because I just stopped talking to people. If you watched my video where I talk about panic disorder, I mentioned one morning getting up and falling back down because I couldn't feel my legs. That day broke me. I had to go to work. No one was home to help me. I didn't want to bother family and friends because I had been ghosting them for some time, and I was nowhere near figuring out how I was going to get rid of these symptoms. Anyway, the next day after that, I had to take a personal day off from work, and I had experienced the worst panic attack of my life by far. It was very much an out-of-body experience. It was the best way I could describe it to the doctors. But anyway, I started taking the doctors a little bit more seriously. I started therapy. I even allowed my doctor to prescribe medication that I never ended up picking up, but it was progress. I started going to church. I reached out to my closest friends to let them know what I was going through. And I did the same with family. And both family and friends were incredibly helpful. I started journaling. I even bought a binder to keep my medical records and my diary logs. I started eating more, and I had gained back the weight that I had lost. I could see color coming back to my skin and a light at the end of the tunnel. And I haven't felt depressed since. Until now that I'm pregnant and now that I'm experiencing prenatal depression. I forgot I took a quick trip to the dollar store this morning before my pampering session, but I wanted to save this for last because, they have a baby aisle and I talk about prenatal depression, so it just made sense. This is going to be brief because my symptoms are pretty recent. According to the Mayo Clinic, one of the main symptoms of depression is losing interest in activities and things you enjoy doing. So for me, I've lost complete interest in my hobbies. And that's how I know. But I am waiting to talk to a therapist about this to get that all taken care of. I'm very excited because so far with documenting for this channel, it has actually helped me get up and get going. So I'm pretty glad I did this. I am so excited, guys. Let's make this happen. Hello. Just wanted to wrap up the video by saying thank you so much for listening to me talk about my depression, my depressed life. It helps to talk about it. It helps to share with as many people as you can. So I encourage, if you're a little sad, you don't have to be full on depressed, but if you're a little sad, talk to someone. Someone is always willing to listen, believe it or not. As always, try and be positive every day of your life and keep on smiling no matter what happens. Bye.